today we're going to be taking a look at Armored Troops Votoms, and it's a military science fiction slash mecha show. And I only heard about this one within recent years, and ever since I heard about it, it has interested me, but now I finally decided to take the time and sit down and finally give it a watch. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the story. So there was a very long war that happened between two nations called Gilgamesh and the Balrant. And of course, one of the main weapons that were used throughout this war was a thing called Votoms. So what Votoms stands for is Vertical One-Man Tank for Offensive and Maneuvers. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. So now the main story follows the main character, Chiriko, and he was a Special Forces pilot. And just before he got captured by the Gilgamesh military as a traitor, he was on a sketchy mission that involved trying to take some top secret intel, but he got betrayed by his own men and got left behind to die, but he ended up surviving, and that was where he got captured. So now he's being interrogated by these guys by trying to find out what the secret is, but he doesn't know anything, so of course he ends up being tortured, so he wants to escape considering it's just a big massive shithole. So like the badass he is, he ends up knocking everybody out and ends up escaping. So it hasn't been too long since now that he's back into the city. He ended up getting captured again, but not by the military group. Instead, it was actually by a group of bandits who kidnap people and make them do slave work. So after another pretty awesome escape scene, he ends up finding 2 other people that are willing to help him, such as Gato. And he's an old guy that likes to fix up machines and also likes to gamble. And then there's Coconut, who has grown up as an orphan, and she's always willing to help out Chiriko. And lastly, there's Vanilla, who always happens to have like the greatest intel. So they all really want to help out Chiriko in any way that they can, but of course, Gato and Vanilla are always fighting by trying to make him a contract so then they can be his manager. So while all these characters are adventuring around the city, sometimes they run into ex-military troops that used to work with Chiriko like way back. And at the same time, the military and the group of bandits are all looking out for Chiriko, because they think he knows the secret, but he really doesn't. So that's all what Chiriko is pretty much interested in, is that he wants to know the secret that everybody thinks he knows about, but he really doesn't. And eventually there is a girl named Faina, and Chiriko thinks that she is related with this military secret that everyone's all talking about. And of course I'm not going to say what the secret is, because, you know, that would kind of spoil the entire thing. But I think that's really what you need to know about the story within this one. So personally, I actually really like the story within this one. I think all the characters are pretty great and interesting. And this show kind of seems like the basic idea of an Indiana Jones movie, but just, you know, set in the future. And I like that. That's awesome. And there was a whole lot of action, and there was never a dull moment. So from start to finish, I was fully interested within this one. So that is indeed a great thing. So now, let's move on to the other things and talk about the animation. And I think it is pretty good for the most part. Now, there may not be like a whole lot of bright colors within this show, but I think it does suit the show very well, since the show is definitely not a bright and color happy anime. The fight scenes are really well done, and some of the character designs are also pretty good as well. And I find that the mechs within this show kind of look like the Zaku's from the Gundam series. At least that's what they remind me of anyways. But I do think that is a good thing, since I always did like that kind of design. Although my one complaint I do have with the animation is that as its own, it is good, but I find, like, compared to a lot of animes that I've seen before that were much older, just for an example, when I was watching The Rose of Ursulese, they were just a whole lot better looking, where this one just doesn't look as good as that. But despite that there, as its own, it still looks good for what it is, and really, it's just a minor thing, but it is worth pointing out. So for the most part, the animation is good, but maybe it could have been a little bit better, but even still, I'm pretty happy with the way how it is. So now, as for the music within this show, the music in this one is pretty great. So all the songs suit the tone really well, and I do find some of the songs are pretty catchy. I really like that one that has that pretty funky bass line going for it. That one is pretty great. And even the opening theme song for this one is also pretty great as well, so really, I don't really have any complaints about the music whatsoever. Now, as for the voice acting, this one is kind of weird because for the most part it is only in Japanese, but they only did make one episode that was in English, and well, you know, there's not much I can really say about that. But apparently Chiriko was being played by Dan Green, so yeah, that's actually pretty fucking cool. But yeah, there's nothing much else I can say about the voice acting in general, since, well, I'm sure you all know the line by now. But as far as I can tell, it sounds good for what it is. So now, before I start talking about the score, one thing I will want to mention here is that when I first heard about this show, or when I was just talking to people about random ass animes that we really like, a couple of people were recommending me to go see this one as soon as possible. And even though I did want to take a look at it last year, I just decided to move it around a little bit, and well, I decided to take a look at it this year. So now, if I were to rate this one, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So with that said, I am not disappointed with this show whatsoever. So yes, it's fucking awesome. But I'd say my most favorite thing about this show would have to be the main character, Chirico. Not only is he just a badass, but you also do feel for him a lot of the times, since he has been through so much shit. And I also have to say, the ending was also pretty fucking awesome, but of course I'm not going to explain that here, because seriously, if you have not seen this show, I can definitely recommend it too. Especially if you're a fan of the mecha genre, or like the science fiction genre, or anything like that, it's definitely for a really great time. And it's unfortunate that this show was not as popular back then, because I do find it is one of those diamond in the rough scenarios, since I don't hear too many people talking about this show, but the ones that do know about this show all say it's really fucking great, and I agree with them. Now, before I end this one, I will want to say that there's like a shitload of OVAs after this series, and I haven't seen any of them yet, but I am really looking forward to them. So yes, this show is now considered up there with some of my other all-time favorite ones.